Have you ever stood in a grocery aisle, grabbed a coffee you thought was safe, and wondered if your daily cup is quietly doing more harm than good? What if the brand you trust most is selling you comfort, not quality, and hiding the real cost in sugar, weak beans, and slick marketing? Before we expose the brands that may not deserve space in your kitchen, do me a quick favor. Like this video if coffee matters in your life, subscribe if you want smarter shopping guides, and share this with the one friend who treats coffee like a food group. For millions of people, coffee is not just a drink. It is the first decision of the day. It is the thing that helps you wake up, think clearly, drive to work, and feel like yourself again. That is exactly why coffee deserves more attention than most people give it. A lot of shoppers buy with their eyes. They see a famous logo, a patriotic label, an organic-looking color scheme, or a promise like smooth, bold, premium, or clean. And once they see that, they stop asking questions. Where were these beans grown? How were they processed? Is this cup packed with sugar? Is the brand transparent about sourcing? Are you paying for coffee or paying for branding? That is the real problem. Many coffee companies are not selling craft. They are selling image. Some sell convenience. Some sell identity. Some sell nostalgia. Some sell fake health claims. And some know that once your morning routine depends on them, you are less likely to leave. Now, let's be fair, right from the start. Not every product from a big brand is equally bad. A plain brewed coffee is very different from a frozen dessert drink wearing a coffee costume. A brand may have one decent product and 10 weak ones. This video is not about panic. It is about pattern recognition. If a brand keeps showing the same red flags over and over, you should know before you buy. And the red flags are usually easy to spot once you know where to look. Too much sugar, too much hype, not enough sourcing transparency, weak or missing certifications, burnt beans, stale flavor, overpriced pods, extreme caffeine, or healthy coffee products that turn your cup into a chemistry experiment. So today, we are going through 13 coffee brands and product lines that deserve real caution, then 7 safer picks that make a much better case for your money. Some of these names are huge, some are trendy, some are loved for all the wrong reasons. And by the end, you will know how to separate a truly solid coffee from one that only looks good on the shelf. Let's start with a giant. Starbucks is one of the most powerful coffee names in the world. And that power matters, because when a brand gets that big, it shapes how millions of people think about coffee. For many customers, Starbucks became the definition of premium. But when you look closely, a lot of what people love is not really the coffee itself. It is the experience, the branding, the seasonal menu, the sugar rush, and the habit. If you order plain brewed coffee, that is one thing. But many of the most famous Starbucks drinks are closer to dessert than coffee. Huge sugar loads, heavy syrups, whipped toppings, sweet sauces, add-ins stacked on add-ins. At that point, the coffee is not the hero anymore. It is the delivery system. And when a brand trains customers to crave sweetness more than bean quality, that should tell you something. The second issue is consistency. A giant chain can make coffee feel familiar, but familiar is not the same as excellent. A lot of people describe major chain coffee as darker, harsher, and more roasted than necessary. That strong burnt taste can fool people into thinking they are getting something bold, when really they may be tasting over-roasting rather than quality. Next comes Folgers, the brand of pure nostalgia. For many families, this was the smell of morning. That warm memory matters. But memory can keep a brand alive long after quality stops deserving loyalty. Folgers is popular because it is familiar, cheap, and easy to find. But coffee being easy to find does not make it good. One major concern with bargain coffee is that you often get very little detail about what is actually in the bag beyond broad roast language and comforting marketing. Where exactly were the beans sourced? How carefully were they selected? What standards separate this blend from dozens of other low-cost tins? In many cases, shoppers simply do not know. And taste still matters. If a coffee needs a flood of cream and sugar before it becomes enjoyable, that is not a great sign. Plenty of people drink Folgers because it is what they grew up with, not because it wins blind taste tests against better beans. Habit is powerful, but habit should not be confused with quality. Maxwell House lands in a similar zone. It is another old-school name with deep shelf space and a lot of trust built over decades. But again, trust built through repetition is not proof of excellence. When coffee tastes flat, dusty, or oddly stale, that is often the sign of a product designed more for scale than for flavor. There is also a deeper issue here. Coffee is an agricultural product. That means how it is grown, stored, and processed matters a lot. Better coffee brands tend to talk clearly about origin, relationships, certifications, or quality standards. Weaker brands often give you broad claims and very little detail. When the package tells a story but avoids specifics, pay attention. Then we get to 8 o'clock coffee. This brand has history, it has name recognition, it has shelf presence. But it also sits in that awkward middle ground where it wants to feel more elevated than basic bargain coffee without fully proving why. The result is a brand many shoppers accept, but few people truly rave about once they have tried fresher, better sourced options. This is where a lot of coffee mistakes happen. People assume that if a brand has been around forever, it must be doing something right. Sometimes that is true. Other times, it simply means the brand mastered distribution, pricing, and repeat buying. Those are business wins, not flavor wins. And if you are serious about what goes into your body every day, good enough is not a great standard for coffee. This is one of the most repeated drinks in many people's diets. If you drink it daily, sometimes twice or 3 times daily, small quality issues stop being small. Now let's talk about convenience coffee, because convenience is where many brands win your wallet fast. Keurig K-Cups change the morning routine for a huge number of people. Drop in a pod, press a button, done. It is fast, it is clean, it feels efficient. And that is exactly why so many people overlook the trade-off. Pods often make coffee more expensive cup for cup. They also create a freshness problem. Coffee tastes best when it is handled with care, brewed properly, and not sitting in a tiny sealed pod for who knows how long. Even when the flavor is decent, it rarely tastes as alive as coffee brewed from fresher grounds. Then there's the machine issue. A lot of people clean the outside and forget the inside. But warm, damp machines can collect residue and grime. That does not mean every pod machine is dangerous. It means the easy system can make people lazy, and lazy maintenance is not what you want in a daily appliance. And yes, the waste problem is real too. A fast cup feels small in the moment. But scale that across millions of homes and offices, and convenience starts to look very expensive for the planet. There's also a mindset problem that convenience coffee can create. Once brewing turns into pushing one button, many people stop noticing flavor completely. They stop asking whether the cup smells fresh, tastes layered, or leaves a clean finish. The goal becomes speed, not quality. And when speed becomes the main value, brands do not have to work as hard to impress your senses. They only have to save you time. That is how average coffee becomes normal. Not because it is great, but because it is easy. And over time, easy habits are hard to question. You stop tasting carefully, you stop comparing, you stop expecting better. That is why convenience products deserve more scrutiny than they usually get. The easier a system makes buying and brewing, the more careful you should become about what that system is quietly taking away. And one more thing matters here. The companies that save you a few minutes each morning may quietly train you to accept a weaker cup for years. That trade is bigger than it looks when you add it up across a lifetime of mornings. If this video is already changing how you think about your next cup, tap like, subscribe for more smart food breakdowns, and share this with the person who still believes any coffee with a famous logo must be a good one. Nespresso built a more polished version of the same promise. It sells elegance, it sells sleek machines. It sells the feeling that pod coffee grew up, moved into a better apartment, and started using nicer words. But underneath that polished surface, many of the same questions remain. A premium machine cannot magically turn every sealed pod into outstanding coffee. It can make the ritual feel more luxurious. That is different. It can make the branding stronger. That is different too. But if the system locks you into a closed ecosystem and asks you to pay premium prices for convenience, you should ask whether you are buying great coffee or buying a polished habit. Dunkin' is another name that deserves a hard look, especially because its coffee image improved faster than many of its products did. Dunkin' did a smart job making itself feel like an everyday coffee stop rather than just a donut place. But a lot of its most popular drinks lean heavily on sugar, flavor shots, cream, and syrups. And this is where many viewers need to separate coffee from coffee-flavored treats. If a drink is packed with sugar and calories, then the question is no longer, is this good coffee? The real question becomes, why am I pretending this is just coffee? There's nothing wrong with an occasional treat. But daily habits shape health. Brands know that if they keep your taste buds excited enough, you may stop checking the label. Nescafé is next, and this is where instant coffee enters the chat. Instant coffee wins on speed. You boil water, stir, and move on. For travel, emergencies, or pure convenience, people get the appeal. But speed often comes with sacrifice. Many instant coffees taste flatter than fresh coffee because so much of the aroma and life of the beans gets lost in processing. And if coffee is one of your few daily pleasures, that matters. A fast cup that feels dull every morning may be convenient, but it is still dull. The same general caution applies to some highly aggressive, ultra-strong product marketing. Brands like Death Wish built their identity around extreme caffeine, and while that can sound fun online, it is not a joke for everybody. Very high caffeine may feel exciting, especially if you're tired and overworked, but more is not always better. If a coffee is marketed like a dare, take that seriously. For some people, strong coffee just means a bigger jolt. For others, it can mean jitters, anxiety, sleep problems, racing heart, or a miserable afternoon crash. Energy without control is not a win. If your coffee turns you into a shaky version of yourself, that is not performance, that is overload. Then there is bulletproof style coffee. This idea exploded because it promised focus, fat burning, and cleaner energy. Coffee blended with butter or heavy fat became a whole movement. And to be honest, part of the appeal was psychological. It felt like you were not just drinking coffee, you were joining a smarter tribe. But here is the problem. When a brand or trend makes broad health promises, slow down. Feeling full is not the same as being healthier. Feeling mentally sharp for a moment is not proof of a miracle system. And turning your morning cup into a calorie bomb may help some people in specific routines, but that does not make it a smart default for most viewers. Black Rifle Coffee is another fascinating example of how identity can sell coffee better than coffee can sell itself. The brand is loud, memorable, and culturally charged. It knows exactly how to speak to a certain customer. That is strong marketing. But strong marketing should never end the conversation. It should begin it. Once you look past the lifestyle message, you still need to ask the boring but important questions. How transparent is the sourcing? How strong is the quality control? Are you paying for the beans or paying for the branding story wrapped around the beans? Because identity-based brands often build loyalty before they build trust. Green Mountain also belongs in this caution zone, especially because it became deeply tied to pod culture. When a brand grows with convenience, it inherits all the same concerns we talked about earlier. Price per cup, waste, freshness, and the illusion that quick equals good. Seattle's Best is another one of those names that sounds stronger than the experience often feels. A name like that creates high expectations. But the coffee world is full of brands with confident names and average cups. It is very easy to sound premium. It is much harder to taste premium. And let's not skip Caffè Bustelo because this one is complicated. A lot of people genuinely love it for strength and espresso-style character. But strong flavor is not the same as broad quality. For some drinkers, it is bold and satisfying. For others, it is harsh, heavy, and less forgiving on the stomach. This is one of those cases where popularity proves a clear audience exists, but not that the product works well for everyone. Finally, let's add one more category to the caution list. Ready-to-drink canned coffee loaded with sugar and extras. I'm not targeting just one brand here. I'm targeting the trap. Many canned and bottled coffees look healthy because they say cold brew, protein, or energy on the front. Then you flip the can around and realize it is closer to a dessert drink than a clean coffee. So that is the first half of the story. Big names, fast systems, sweet drinks, identity marketing, nostalgia brands, extreme caffeine, fake health halos, different labels, same pattern. Now let's flip the script and talk about what safer coffee actually looks like. Safer coffee usually starts with transparency, not perfection. Transparency. A better brand tends to tell you more, not less. You often see clear sourcing language, better quality standards, cleaner ingredient lists, and stronger third-party certifications. That does not automatically make every bag amazing, but it is a much better start. One strong option is Purity Coffee. What makes Purity stand out is not hype, it is focus. The brand built its whole identity around cleaner sourcing, careful roasting, and health-centered positioning. Whether or not you think every claim in coffee culture deserves applause, the bigger point is that Purity makes an unusual effort to show its work. In a market where many brands hide behind vague language, that matters. Another safer pick is Equal Exchange. People who care about fair trade, farmer relationships, and organic standards often bring this name up for a reason. It has a long reputation for taking sourcing seriously. And when you find a brand that seems to care about the people growing the coffee, not just the people buying it, that usually tells you something important about its priorities. Stumptown is another safer choice for viewers who want a bridge between specialty coffee and wider availability. It is one of those brands that helped many people realize coffee could taste brighter, cleaner, and more alive than what they grew up with. Better coffee does not always mean darker. It does not always mean stronger. Sometimes it means more detail, more balance, more character. Intelligentsia also deserves a look. It is one of those names that built respect by appealing to people who care deeply about craft. That does not mean it is cheap. It usually is not. But safety and quality are not always about buying the most expensive bag. They are about buying from companies that treat coffee like a product worth respecting. Peet's Coffee makes the safer list too, especially for people who want something more mainstream without dropping all the way down into generic supermarket territory. Peet's often feels like a useful middle path. It is more accessible than many specialty roasters, but it still carries a stronger coffee identity than the giant bargain cans. For viewers who want something smoother and widely available, Lavazza is another name worth considering. It has been around for a very long time, and unlike some old legacy brands, it still has real respect among espresso drinkers. Longevity by itself means nothing, but longevity plus continued relevance says a lot more. Then there is Life Boost, a brand that built attention around low-acid coffee, testing, and cleaner positioning. Some people need that because regular coffee feels rough on their stomach. Others just want a brand that seems serious about what it is putting in the bag. Either way, this speaks to a bigger truth. The safest coffee is often the coffee that is most specific about what it is doing and why. Blue Bottle can also work for viewers who care about fresher, specialty-style coffee and who are willing to pay more for a cleaner cup and a more modern approach. Again, no brand is beyond criticism. But if you compare the overall experience of a careful specialty roaster with a low-information bargain tin, the difference in intent becomes obvious. And if you are shopping on a tighter budget, there is one important reminder. Safe does not always mean luxury. Sometimes the best move is not finding the perfect brand. It is simply avoiding the worst habits. Buy whole beans when possible. Use them reasonably soon after opening. Store them well. Stop drowning weak coffee in sugar. And read labels instead of trusting logos. That is the deeper lesson in this whole video. Coffee quality is not just about brands. It is also about buyer behavior. Companies train us to chase convenience, sweetness, strength, and image. But better coffee usually rewards patience. It asks a few more questions. It pays attention to details. It respects the bean instead of hiding it. So how do you actually protect yourself the next time you shop? Start with the ingredient list. If it is a flavored bottled drink, look at sugar first, then look at calories. Then ask whether you would still want it if the sweeteners vanished. If the answer is no, the coffee may not be carrying much of the value. Next, look for transparency. Organic certifications can matter. Fair trade can matter. Direct trade language can matter. Clear origin information can matter. None of these things alone make a coffee perfect. But when a brand gives you almost no real detail, that is usually not a sign of excellence. Then think about format. Pods are easy. Instant coffee is fast. Bottled coffee is grab and go, but every convenience format should make you ask what you're giving up in return. Sometimes the answer is price. Sometimes freshness. Sometimes flavor. Sometimes environmental cost. Sometimes all of the above. Also think about your own body. Does your coffee make you feel focused or fried, calm or shaky, satisfied or bloated? A brand can be trendy online and still be wrong for you. Your best coffee is not the one with the loudest fan base. It is the one that fits your body, your budget, and your standards without needing a giant marketing story to justify itself. And never let caffeine ego fool you. People love to brag about how strong their coffee is, as if suffering is proof of quality. It is not. Coffee is not better because it hits harder. It is better when it tastes good, feels clean, and leaves you better off than before. This is also why plain coffee deserves more respect than sweet coffee drinks. Plain coffee makes the bean answer for itself. There's nowhere to hide, no whipped cream shield, no syrup curtain, no candy disguise, just aroma, body, balance, and finish. That is where good brands separate themselves from brands that survive on decoration. There is another hidden problem many shoppers miss. Some brands spend so much energy creating emotional attachment that customers stop reviewing the product honestly. Maybe the packaging reminds you of home. Maybe the brand signals status. Maybe it reflects your politics, your identity, or your routine. But coffee should still have to earn its place in the cup. And that is what this list is really about. Not fear, not perfection, not acting superior in a grocery aisle. It is about raising your standards a little higher for something you drink all the time. Because the truth is, your daily coffee can be one of the easiest upgrades in your life. You do not need to change everything overnight. You do not need to become a coffee scientist. You do not need a $1,000 machine. You just need to stop assuming the biggest brands deserve automatic trust. Maybe that means cutting back on sugar-heavy chain drinks. Maybe it means leaving pod systems behind. Maybe it means replacing one stale supermarket brand with a cleaner, more transparent one. Small change, big payoff. And if you want more videos that save you money and save your stomach, hit subscribe, leave a quick like, and send this to someone who thinks burnt coffee and strong coffee mean the same thing. And yes, some safer brands cost more. But cost should be measured honestly. If you buy cheap coffee that needs cream, sugar, syrups, and second cups to become enjoyable, was it really cheaper? If you buy strong coffee that wrecks your nerves by noon, was it really worth it? If you buy trendy coffee that tastes average without the branding story, what exactly did you pay for? The best coffee purchase is not always the cheapest sticker. It is the smartest total choice. So if I had to make this simple, here's the fast summary. Be cautious with brands and product lines that rely on sugar, stale mass market blends, closed pod systems, fake health halos, or extreme caffeine identity. Look more kindly at brands that offer cleaner sourcing, clearer standards, better flavor reputation, and fewer gimmicks. And once you start tasting the difference, it becomes hard to go back. Coffee should wake you up, not fool you. It should feel like a small daily reward, not a compromise you made because a logo looked familiar. At the end of the day, coffee is personal. People defend the brands they grew up with. They defend the drinks they use to survive hard mornings. I get that. But loyalty should go both ways. If a company wants your daily trust, it should offer more than habit, hype, and packaging. It should offer honesty. It should offer quality. And it should make you feel good about what is in your cup and what it took to get there. That is why the real winners on this list are not just the safest brands. The real winners are the brands that respect the drinker enough to be clear, careful, and consistent. Once you see that standard, you cannot unsee it. And once you taste better coffee, you stop calling good enough good